At 2:17 a.m., the phone rang in a quiet suburban police station. And within minutes, a single name shattered the illusion of safety for an entire community. Because when officers realized who was missing, they also realized something worse. Almost everyone they spoke to knew the victim. And almost everyone had a story that didn't quite add up, turning one disappearance into a nightmare that created more than 100 suspects and a mystery that still defines what true crime investigators fear most. A case where the truth is buried beneath familiarity, silence, and too many possible answers. This is a Dark Case Files true crime story, a Senite Hekiksi that begins not with screams or blood, but with absence, the kind of absence that screams louder than violence ever could. The town of Ridgewood sat between forests and highways, the kind of place where people waved at each other by name and doors were left unlocked, and at the center of this town lived Daniel Mercer, a 34-year-old school counselor known for his calm voice, routine habits, and reputation as someone everyone trusted. Which is why when he didn't show up for work on the morning of October 12, 2011, colleagues first joked about traffic or a sick day until noon passed, then evening, and finally his sister reported him missing, describing an unusual silence in his apartment, untouched coffee shoes by the door, phone on the charger, and Daniel himself nowhere to be found. Daniel's life, at least from the outside, appeared simple and orderly. He worked at Ridgewood High, volunteered with at-risk youth, jogged the same route every evening, and maintained friendly, but surface-level relationships with neighbors, coworkers, former students, and parents, which would later become a chilling detail because simplicity creates patterns, and patterns create opportunities for disruption. The environment around Daniel was deceptively peaceful: tree-lined streets, modest homes, a diner that closed at 9, and a bar where everyone knew who had been there the night before, making Ridgewood the worst possible place for a disappearance, because nothing stayed secret, and yet nothing made sense. In the hours after the missing person report, police initially treated the case as voluntary. An adult man with no signs of struggle, no ransom note, no history of mental illness. But that assumption collapsed when detectives entered Daniel's apartment and discovered his laptop open on the desk, paused on an unsent email draft that read only, "If anything happens to me," followed by nothing, a haunting fragment that suggested fear, anticipation, or knowledge that something was coming. The next layer of the case unfolded slowly and methodically, like a film scene designed to tighten the viewer's chest as investigators canvassed the building. Neighbors reported hearing footsteps around midnight. A woman on the second floor claimed she heard raised voices but couldn't identify them, and a man across the hall insisted he saw nothing despite security cameras showing his door opening at 12:43 a.m. Daniel was last confirmed alive at 11:58 p.m. when he sent a casual text to a coworker, and between that moment and dawn, he vanished without leaving physical evidence behind. No blood, no forced entry, no witnesses willing to say more than fragments. As the case widened, so did the suspect list, because Daniel's job placed him in the lives of troubled teenagers, anxious parents, fellow counselors, and administrators, each with potential motives ranging from resentment to misplaced trust. And within days, detectives counted more than 40 persons of interest, a number that would eventually exceed 100, transforming the investigation into a psychological maze rather than a physical search. The disappearance that created 100 suspects earned its name quickly as police discovered Daniel had mediated conflicts involving expelled students, allegations of abuse, academic misconduct, and disciplinary actions that resulted in futures being altered. And while none of these situations were violent on the surface, investigators understood something crucial: emotional consequences can be as dangerous as physical ones. One of the first dramatic turns came when police received an anonymous tip stating that Daniel had been seeing someone secretly, a relationship that was not appropriate, a phrase vague enough to ignite speculation. And when they searched his phone records, they found dozens of calls from unregistered numbers, burner phones that pinged towers near the school, the park, and an abandoned railway line just outside town. The search for Daniel became cinematic in its bleakness. Dogs dragged through wetlands, volunteers combed forests, divers checked creeks, helicopters circled fields, and yet nothing surfaced. No body, no clothing, no trail beyond the town's edges, making Ridgewood itself feel like a sealed room mystery where the answer had to be inside. As investigators deepened interviews, contradictions emerged. A former student admitted Daniel had threatened to report him for theft, A parent accused Daniel of favoritism. A colleague hinted at professional jealousy, and a local bartender recalled Daniel arguing with someone the night before his disappearance. A man no one could later identify, each statement adding suspicion but removing clarity. Police mistakes began quietly then loudly. As resources were split thin among too many leads, alibis were accepted too quickly. And early media pressure forced detectives to release information, prematurely allowing rumors to infect the narrative, turning neighbors into amateur profilers and suspects into victims of public judgment. One shock came when security footage from a gas station 10 miles away showed a man resembling Daniel at 3:06 a.m. walking stiffly, accompanied by another figure mostly out of frame. But enhancement techniques failed to confirm identity, and weeks later the footage was ruled inconclusive, a haunting almost proof that kept hope alive while solving nothing. As months passed, the case evolved from missing person to presumed foul play, and the community's reaction fractured. Some demanded arrests. Others accused police of incompetence, and several families connected to the school hired lawyers, transforming cooperation into silence. True crime experts would later point out that Ridgewood had fallen into a common trap. Abundance of suspects creates paralysis, and paralysis allows evidence to decay, memories to shift, and truth to hide behind time. The most controversial suspect emerged nearly a year later. A quiet maintenance worker at the school who owned a van matching a partial witness description. But surveillance, phone pings, and DNA excluded him, igniting backlash that damaged his life irreversibly. A reminder that suspicion itself can be a form of violence. Another twist arrived when an envelope was mailed to the station containing a single key and a note typed in block letters reading, "You already spoke to me," sparking renewed interrogations, polygraphs, and psychological analysis, yet the key never matched any known lock, and handwriting experts could not confirm whether it was authentic or a cruel hoax. Years went by, and Daniel Mercer became a symbol rather than a person, his photo pinned beside candles. His case taught in criminal justice classes as an example of investigative overload, while his family lived in a suspended grief without confirmation or closure. To this day, no remains have been found, no charges filed, no confession verified, and the list of suspects remains archived, a digital graveyard of possibilities where guilt and innocence blur together. The disappearance that created 100 suspects ends where it began, with silence, unanswered questions, and a community forever changed. And as we close the Star Case Files, Episode 1 question lingers heavier than all the rest when everyone is a suspect. Is the truth hiding in plain sight, or buried so deep it no longer wants to be found? And if you had been there, what detail would you have noticed? Who would you have trusted, and who do you believe took Daniel Mercer from a town that thought it knew itself? Let us know your theory in the comments, because sometimes the smallest perspective cracks the darkest case. Subscribe to Dark Case Files for more true crime stories, more narratives, and more journeys into mysteries that refuse to stay silent.